The dead don't speak, but silence can still scream. That day it screamed in pews and glances and the ache behind my ribcage. I stood in the back of the church as the final hymn faded. Melissa sat in the front row, black veil barely hiding the dry coldness in her face. My son's casket was 10 feet away, polished like it mattered. I hadn't touched it. I couldn't. My hands didn't trust themselves. People murmured condolences like they were reading off a script. He was a good man, too young. You holding up okay? I nodded, said nothing. My throat had shut days ago. What was there to say? I caught Melissa's eyes once. She looked at me like a stain on her shoes. She didn't say a word, just turned her head and reached for her purse. I followed the crowd outside, gripping my cane tighter than I should have. My legs had strength, but my will didn't. The cold gnawed at my bones. David always brought me a scarf, even when I said no. "You'll catch pneumonia just to be right," he'd laugh. I wish someone had warned me about this grief, about her. At the curb, the black town car idled. David had arranged it months ago for emergencies, never thinking it would one day carry him away. Melissa and her family slid into the seats. I hesitated at the door. She turned, mouthed a hard line. "No, you're not coming." I blinked. "It's cold, You're not even family anymore," she snapped. "You don't belong here." It didn't echo. People heard it, but no one reacted. That was the worst part. They just looked down. Her mother adjusted her coat like she hadn't heard a thing. Her father coughed, muttered something about traffic. And just like that, the door shut. I stood on the sidewalk as the car rolled away, the exhaust curling up like smoke from a final burn. My cane tapped the concrete once, then again, and again. It was the only sound I could control. If anyone's listening, don't make the mistake I did. Don't hand over trust like it's unbreakable. Don't believe silence means peace. My hand trembled as I reached for my pocket. No keys, no house, no family car. The world had shifted in 4 words. I walked. No direction, no weight in my stomach, just memory. The way David used to squeeze my shoulder when I got overwhelmed. The way he used to whisper, "You and me against the world, Pop." Now it was just me and the world. A gust of wind kicked up the dried petals from the funeral wreaths. One stuck to my coat and fluttered, fragile and bright against the black. I brushed it off without looking back. The wind was colder on our street than anywhere else that day. Maybe it was just me. Grief makes the air thicker. I gripped the gate latch, fingers stiff. David and I had built that fence together. I painted it. He laughed at how long I took. That house was the last place that felt like mine until I saw the new keypad lock blinking red at me. I rang the bell. Melissa's father answered. "Oh, it's you." "I need to get my coat," I said quietly. "And my medication, it's still in the upstairs cabinet." He leaned on the doorframe like I was selling vacuum cleaners. "Melissa says it's not a good time. She's grieving." "So am I," said. He didn't flinch. "We've gathered your things." He disappeared inside. My chest sank. A moment later, her mother came out with a cardboard box. "Here," she said, like she was handing me leftovers. "This should be all you need." It was. I could already see what was missing. No coat, no framed photo of me and David fishing, no black notebook where I kept bank records. Just socks, some toiletries, and a sweater I never liked. "I co-own this house," I said. "Half the down payment came from my pension. Ask David. I just want 5 minutes." She stiffened. "David wanted you comfortable, not in the way." "In the way," my voice cracked. "We're all hurting," she said, already closing the door. "Let's not make it harder." The door clicked shut. I stood there for a long time. Cars passed. A dog barked 2 houses down. The cardboard box felt heavier than my grief. Flashback 2 years ago, David had handed me a folder. "Dad, Melissa wants to refinance the house. Can you sign here just to show your shares clear?" I didn't ask questions. I trusted him. There were no lawyers, just love. That's the part that hurts the most. Now I wondered what I'd signed away. I sat on the curb and pulled out my phone. I still had the number for Evan, David's old friend from college, a lawyer. He once helped me contest a medical bill. David said if anything ever happened, Evan would know what to do. The number rang, then voicemail. I tried again, and again still nothing. That night I took the bus to the VA center. The staff were kind, said I could stay for 2 nights until I figured things out. I didn't argue. I found a bench in the common room and lay back with the box on my chest. Every creak of the room sounded louder than it should have. Fluorescent lights buzzed like they were judging me. I opened the box and stared at the contents: toothbrush, scarf, a mug that wasn't even mine. Was this planned? Did Melissa wait until David was gone, or had he known and just never told me? I didn't sleep. I clutched that box like a lifeline. Grief is heavy, but humiliation is sharp. It doesn't just sit inside you, it carves. And in that cold, too bright room I started bleeding, quietly. I hadn't planned to open the box again, but grief is strange. It makes you dig through things, looking for something that feels alive. At the bottom, beneath a balled-up sweater and a cracked mug, I found David's old phone. It still had the same blue case, scuffed at the corners like his old sneakers. The screen was shattered, spiderwebbed across the corner. I held it like it was glass, which it was, in more ways than one. It took 3 different plugs to find a charger that fit. When it finally buzzed to life, my chest tightened. The background photo hadn't changed. Him and me at the lake, fishing poles in hand, both of us sunburned and smiling. I scrolled through the apps. Most had been untouched. The last few texts were all from Melissa, clipped, emotionless. Pick up milk. Talk to the insurance lady. We need to redo the deed before tax season. But then I found the voice memos. David never liked typing when he was emotional. He used to leave me voice notes before important meetings or when he couldn't sleep. I tapped the most recent one. "Dad," his voice crackled, low and rushed. "If anything happens, check the blue folder. In my closet, don't trust." It cut off. I sat up. The room spun for a second. My heart was thudding, not like grief this time, like fear. The blue folder, his closet, and the warning, "Don't trust who." I replayed it 3 times, hoping some ghost of sound would finish the sentence. But it always ended the same, a half breath, then silence. My hands shook. I pressed the phone to my chest. Flashback: 2 weeks before the funeral. David packing the hallway. Melissa behind him, whisper yelling. I'd heard fragments. "It's not yours yet," he'd said. "I didn't agree to that." She slammed the door. When I asked, he shrugged it off. And now he was gone, and she had the house, and I had a box of socks and a broken phone. He left breadcrumbs. I could feel it in my gut. David didn't trust easily, but when he did, he trusted fully. If he recorded this, if he left that message, it meant he knew something was wrong. He tried to protect me, even from the grave. But how do I get in now? The locks are changed. They've buried the key. And if that blue folder still exists, it's behind those locked doors or already destroyed. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I played the message one more time, just to hear his voice. I didn't just lose my son. I lost something else, something hidden, something planned. And if Melissa had anything to do with it, she wasn't just a grieving widow. She was playing a longer game. And I was already 5 moves behind. The coffee in the VA center tasted like burnt cardboard, but I sipped it anyway. At least it was warm. My hands still shook every now and then, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something I hadn't named yet. She sat 2 seats down from me, a silver bun pinned tight, sharp eyes scanning a crossword she'd already half finished. Her name tag read Helen M., legal support. I hadn't planned to speak, but sometimes grief makes your voice come out before your brain can stop it. "I think my daughter-in-law stole my house," I said, barely above a whisper. Helen looked up, not surprised, not skeptical, just steady. "Did she hit you?" she asked calmly. "No," I said. "She used paper." That got her attention. We moved to the back table. No small talk, no sympathy, just presence. I handed her the phone with the voicemail. She listened once, twice. Her jaw clenched. "Do you have any paperwork?" she asked. "I had some years ago, bank transfers. I co-paid the down payment, but no lawyer. David handled it. I trusted him." "Did you ever sign over the deed?" she asked. My stomach twisted. David said it was just refinancing. Melissa handed me the forms at dinner. I signed without reading. Helen's face went flat. "That's the oldest trick in the book. Happens all the time. You have a copy." "No, they kept the originals. I didn't think." She raised a hand. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." I felt small admitting it, but her tone didn't pity me, it steadied me. She pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. "We'll need financial records, emails, anything you can remember. Access to David's old social media if possible." Did she brag? I blinked. Brag. Helen nodded. "People who steal always do. They can't help themselves. It's ego dressed as grief." That night, I pulled every dusty envelope I'd stored at the bottom of the box, pension stubs, an old notarized bank transfer, even a few Christmas cards Melissa had sent years ago with passive-aggressive remarks about finally having control of the household. I gave it all to Helen. She found one of Melissa's old Facebook posts. "Finally, a house of my own," it read, dated 2 days after David died. Helen turned the screen to me. "That's not grief, that's motive." The room felt less heavy now. My pain was still there, but it had company, direction. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. Someone saw me finally. "This won't be quick," Helen warned. "And it won't be clean, but if there's fraud, it's going to court, and it's going to be public." I stared at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. "Do you still want to go through with it?" she asked. I met her eyes. "I want my son's voice to mean something. I want the truth to be louder than her lies." She nodded once, "Then let's get to work." The courthouse hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. Helen walked beside me, papers clutched in her hand like a sword. She didn't speak much, didn't need to. Her silence made more noise than Melissa's lawyers ever could. The judge had granted us supervised access to the house, to retrieve personal belongings, the order read, but we both knew what we were really looking for. Melissa was already standing in the driveway when we arrived, arms folded, mouth twisted into a half-smirk. Her lawyer, a man too young to know anything about war or grief, was recording everything on his phone. "You have 15 minutes, he said without looking at me. Helen smiled politely. "We'll be done in 10. The house felt colder than I remembered. The walls had been repainted. Photos were gone. Even the scent, once warm with wood polish and coffee, now smelled like bleach and lemon oil. I walked slowly up the stairs, heart hammering. My son's closet was down the hall, same door, same handle. I paused before opening it. Empty. No shirts, no shoes, no safe. The shelf where the blue folder should have been was bare. A faint outline where dust once gathered now marked its absence, like a chalk outline at a crime scene. Melissa stood behind me. "There's nothing here," she said, voice dripping with boredom. "Did you remove anything after the funeral?" Helen asked, calm but cutting. Melissa shrugged. "I cleaned, it's my house now. I never saw any blue folder." I stared at her, not even pretending. She wanted me to see the erasure, to feel the silence. We didn't respond, just walked out, but my feet dragged. Outside, as we passed the front garden, a familiar voice called out, "Mr. Clark." I turned. Mrs. Collier, our neighbor for 20 years, stood on her porch in a faded cardigan, hands shaking slightly. "May I speak with you?" she asked, eyes darting to Melissa, then back to me. Helen nodded once. We crossed the lawn. I don't want to get involved," Mrs. Collier whispered. "But I saw something. The day after the funeral, she had a pile of papers in the backyard, set them in a barrel, burned them, looked like a blue folder." My throat tightened. "You're sure?" "I remember because your son used to keep a blue folder. I saw it once when he helped me with my taxes." Helen scribbled furiously. "Would you be willing to write that down? Maybe testify if it comes to it." Mrs. Collier hesitated, then nodded. Melissa stood at the door, watching. Her expression didn't change, but her knuckles turned white around the railing. As we walked away, Helen leaned close. "That's enough for a subpoena." I didn't speak. My mind replayed the voice memo, the warning, the silence in the closet. The ashes may be gone, but Melissa's arrogance left footprints in the fire. It had been collecting dust for years, buried beneath medals, discharge papers, and one yellowed photo of David as a boy holding a fishing pole too big for his arms. My safe hadn't been opened since before the pandemic, but something in my gut told me to look again, not for cash or documents, for memory, for proof. The combination stuck for a second, my hand shaking too much, but the lock finally gave. Inside, tucked between my VA discharge file and my marriage license, was a folder I had nearly forgotten. Manila, creased at the corners, labeled in David's handwriting. Contingency draft. I opened it and there it was, a draft will, dated 3 years ago. It wasn't signed, but the words were clear and so was his intent. "If anything should happen to me," it began, "I leave full financial control of the house and all shared property to my father, Robert Clark. I trust him to make decisions aligned with my values and in the best interest of our family." Melissa's name wasn't mentioned once. I took it straight to Helen. Her brow arched as she read through each page. Her finger paused on the handwritten date. "This was made before their refinancing stunt," she muttered. "Before she made me sign anything," I added quietly. She looked at me, expression unreadable. "You know this isn't binding, it's unsigned." "I know," I said, "but it's him, it's his handwriting, his plan." Helen nodded, flipping to the last page where David had scribbled some kind of revision. "He made changes after the cancer diagnosis," she murmured. "See the notes here, he wanted to create a trust." She stood and walked to the printer. Moments later, we had copies. She began drafting a motion. "We're filing an injunction to freeze the deed," she said. "This gives us grounds. Intent prior to coercion combined with the neighbor's testimony and the voicemail, it builds a narrative, one the court will have to consider." That night, Melissa's lawyer called Helen directly, asked to talk terms. She put the phone on speaker. "We're willing to consider a financial settlement," he said. "Something amicable. Maybe we all walk away with some dignity." Helen's voice didn't waver. "You're calling because you know the court is going to see this for what it is. We're just trying to avoid unnecessary attention." Helen cut him off. "We're not here for a settlement, we're here for justice." He hung up. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the will. David's words stared back at me like an old photograph come alive. He had tried, he had planned, and somehow even from beyond he was still standing beside me. That unsigned document didn't have legal power, not yet, but it had weight, and it carried my son's voice in every line. For the first time in weeks I didn't feel erased. I felt seen, heard. And I knew we were just getting started. The courtroom smelled like dust and old paper, the kind of place where truth doesn't shout, it waits. Helen walked beside me, calm as a stone, her briefcase clutched like a shield. I clutched nothing. Everything I had left was inside her bag. Melissa arrived 10 minutes late. Not flustered, not grieving, just late. Her lipstick was too red, her heels too loud. A wall of lawyers surrounded her, 3 of them all in sharp suits and tighter smiles. She didn't look at me. The hearing began with formalities. Then Melissa's lawyer stood. My client, Melissa Clark, was assured by her late husband that the home belonged to her, that he no longer intended to share ownership with the petitioner, her father-in-law, who unfortunately appears to be suffering from emotional delusion and misremembering events. He gestured toward me like I was an exhibit. She claims verbal confirmation from David, the judge repeated, eyes narrowing. Melissa stood. Yes, Your Honor. David said the house would be mine, that his father wouldn't be a problem. I felt the words land like bruises. Helen stood without flinching. Let's test the facts. She submitted the bank transfers, the old Facebook post, the witness affidavit from Mrs. Collier. Then she pulled out a small USB drive. And lastly, we have a voicemail. Melissa visibly stiffened. The judge nodded. Play it. Helen plugged it into the courtroom speaker system. A brief static crackled, then David's voice filled the room, calm but rushed. Dad, if anything happens, check the blue folder in my closet. Don't trust. It cut. The silence afterward wasn't just quiet, it was suffocating. Melissa shifted. Her lawyer whispered something, but she waved him off. The judge turned to her. What blue folder is your late husband referring to? She blinked. I don't know. You claimed verbal confirmation, he said, but your husband's last recorded message seems to contradict that. I never saw a folder, she snapped. And David said a lot of things. He wasn't in his right mind those last few weeks. Helen raised a hand. Then why did you burn documents the day after his funeral? Gasps stirred behind us. The judge leaned forward. Melissa's face went pale. What? Our witness saw you. She'll testify. She described the folder in detail. Melissa looked to her father. He stared straight ahead. Her mother stared at the floor. Her lawyer cleared his throat and asked for a recess. Denied. Melissa's voice dropped an octave. This is a witch hunt. He's bitter, he's old, and he's lying. But no one believed her. Not anymore. The judge scribbled something on a notepad. Melissa's jaw clenched. Her eyes scanned the room, but no one met her gaze. Not even her own father. And for the first time since David's death, I saw it. Fear. Not mine, hers. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The sentence carried its own kind of gravity. Deed transfer is hereby nullified, pending a full forensic review, he said. The respondent is ordered to vacate the premises within 72 hours. Melissa didn't flinch, not on the outside, but I watched her hand, how it twitched against the table, how her lawyer whispered something and she didn't answer. Her skin had gone pale beneath the courtroom lighting. Helen placed a steady hand on my shoulder. It's not over, she said, but it's a start. I nodded, though I felt nothing, just a hollow quiet like after a storm. 2 days later, a court officer handed me the key, my key, and permission to re-enter the house I'd helped build, paid for, lived in. I stood on the porch for a long time before turning it in the lock. The door groaned like it remembered me. The air inside was sharp with cleaning chemicals. Furniture was gone. The rooms echoed. Melissa hadn't wasted time. She stripped the place of comfort but not memory. In the kitchen, I touched the worn spot on the counter where David used to drum his fingers when he was thinking. We should install a butcher block here, Pop, he once said. We never did. I moved through the house slowly. The hallway was lined with nail holes where our pictures used to hang. Only outlines remained, faded rectangles on otherwise bright walls. In the garage, the light still flickered the same way it had when David and I worked late fixing his old Mustang. I swear I could hear his voice for a second, just the echo of a laugh, the sound memory makes when it misses someone too much. Upstairs, the bedroom was bare except for dust and the thin indent where a dresser used to sit. But in the living room, behind the bookshelf, something caught my eye, the corner of a frame, just barely visible. I pulled it out. A photo, me, David, and Melissa from better years. David had his arm around both of us. We were smiling. I'd forgotten that smile. Melissa looked different then, softer, less hungry. I turned the frame over. There was a small note taped to the back in David's handwriting. "Keep this safe. You'll need it one day." My fingers tightened around it. I slipped the photo into my coat pocket, gently, like a relic. The house smelled different now. Not like betrayal, not like bleach or old lies. It smelled like echoes, like memories stepping into the light after being locked away too long. For the first time since he died, I walked into David's room without crying. Not because I stopped missing him, but because I could finally hear him again. Not in voicemail fragments, but in the silence. Clean. Whole. Mine. The newspaper headline didn't feel real. Elder vet wins fraud case after funeral eviction. Below it, my face, older, lined, tired, staring back from a photo I didn't remember being taken. I stared at it for a long time before setting the paper down on the kitchen table, right where David used to toss his car keys. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the ruling. Calls from numbers I hadn't seen in years. Cousins, distant nieces, even the pastor who once forgot my name at David's wedding. "Just wanted to check in, Uncle Rob. Let me know if you need anything, okay? You handled yourself with real grace, proud of you." Where were they when I slept on a VA bench, when I carried my grief in a cardboard box? Helen said this would happen. Victory attracts witnesses, she told me, but most of them arrive late. Melissa didn't come to the final hearing. Her lawyer read a prepared statement, stiff, bloodless. My client regrets that tensions around her husband's death created misunderstandings. She respects the court's findings and apologizes for any distress caused to Mr. Clark. Not to me, to Mr. Clark. No mention of lies, no mention of forged intent, just a PR-written fog. The judge didn't hesitate. Full legal ownership of the house was returned to me. Melissa was fined for willful deceit, ordered to repay misuse of joint accounts, and barred from accessing any portion of David's estate. The court called her behavior calculated and devoid of ethical restraint. Helen didn't smile. She just packed up her folders and said, "We did what we came to do." Later that week, she invited me to speak at a local veterans legal awareness seminar. "There are others like you," she said. "They just don't know what's happening to them yet." I hesitated. I wasn't a speaker. I wasn't a lawyer. I was just a father who'd lost his son and nearly everything else. But then I remembered the look in Mrs. Collier's eyes when she spoke up, the note David left behind his photo, the message in the voicemail. So I said yes. Not for revenge, not even for closure, but because someone else out there is about to sign something at the dinner table without reading it. Someone else is being told they're not family anymore. And maybe, if I speak up, just maybe, they won't have to lose what I did to understand what they're worth. That night, I stood in the hallway of my own home and ran my fingers along the wall where David's height was marked in pencil, from age 6 to 23. He never got taller than 6 foot, but to me, he stood taller in every courtroom, every document, every truth we uncovered. He never stopped protecting me. Now I get to protect someone else. That's what justice is. That's what legacy is. The house is quiet again, not empty, just quiet. There's a difference. I sit by the fireplace with a mug of tea, steam curling like soft breath into the air. Outside, the trees sway gently, their shadows dancing on the living room walls. This time last year, I would have given anything just to feel peace. Now it lives in the silence. Above the mantel, centered neatly between David's old fishing hat and a framed photo of him in uniform, hangs the new deed. My name. My signature. My home. Helen insisted I frame it, You fought for it, she said. Let it remind you. I didn't argue. David's photo sits just beneath it. He's laughing in that picture, open-mouthed, eyes half closed, caught mid-joke. I trace his smile with my eyes. I did what you couldn't, son, I whisper, but only because you left me the trail. The doorbell rings. Helen stands in the doorway with her usual half-smile, a box tucked under one arm. She looks different in civilian clothes, softer, but still sharp around the edges. I came to say goodbye, she says. I'm moving to Colorado next week. Family's there, and I think I've fought enough battles for one lifetime. I nod, you've earned the rest. She steps inside, glancing once around the room. It smells like home again. She hands me the box. Inside, padded in felt, is a small flash drive and a printed transcript. I had the voicemail forensically restored, she says. Took some work, but we recovered the missing seconds. My hands feel suddenly heavier. You sure you want to hear it? She asks. I plug it into the small speaker beside the fire. The crackle returns, then David's voice clearer now, more urgent. Dad, if anything happens, check the blue folder in my closet. Don't trust her. If she says the house is hers, show her the real deed. I left it with Helen. The words drop like stones into my chest. I stare at Helen. She's already looking at me. He gave it to me 3 years ago, told me to keep it quiet unless something ever happened to him. My mouth opens, but no words come. Just a sound, part laugh, part sob. The kind that only escapes when the world finally makes sense again. I grip the arms of my chair and let the moment pass through me. The fear, the loss, the injustice, it's all still there, but now it's wrapped in something heavier, something holy. Truth. Helen squeezes my shoulder, then turns toward the door. Take care of this place, she says. I will, I answer. We both will. When the door clicks shut, I sit back and look around. Not at the furniture, not at the scars in the floor, but at the framed deed and the picture just beneath it. Justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it whispers from the dead, and sometimes it hangs on your wall right where it belongs.